Welcome, everyone, to the series premiere of the 1 Yard Line. I'm your host, Jared Viancourt. Joining by my side is my co-host, Nick Tarorick. Nick, we have a great show. Series premiere of the 1 Yard Line. Going to talk about some amazing NFL football that happened this week. I'm so excited.
I'm also really excited. There were a lot of really good games this weekend in general, and I thought there's a lot to talk about going around the league right now. There's a lot of teams that might have gotten exposed this weekend. There's a lot of teams that had some huge wins, so I'm looking forward to getting right into it.
One of those teams being the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears without Justin Fields this week due to injury, so they bring in their backup, Tyson Bagent. And Bagent, Division II football quarterback from Shepherd University, all the way in West Virginia. Stats for him, gets the victory over the Raiders, 21 for 29 complete attempts for 162 yards, a touchdown, and a 97.2 QBR. Nick, what were your thoughts on Tyson this past weekend?
I think he looked about as good as you can hope for an undrafted rookie quarterback. He was accurate, he hit all his throws, he didn't turn the ball over, he just kind of managed the game really well. He didn't do anything flashy, but he just took what was given to him, made some really nice throws, and got the Bears the win. So, I mean, he's going to be starting again this week. Fields is going to be out again. And if he goes 2-0, maybe there might be some QB controversy in Chicago. I don't know. But if he's 2-0 after the team starts 1-5, maybe you have to consider it.
I definitely think you have to consider it. If you're Bears fans, you got to be happy. You get a victory. Obviously, the Raiders didn't have their starter in Jimmy Garoppolo either, but even then, the Bears blew them out.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. And the
them.
Raiders were coming off 2 straight wins. They came in 3-3, looking to get above 500. Obviously, no Jimmy Garoppolo, but that doesn't change. That doesn't matter considering the fact that Tyson Bagent torched their defense. So I don't even think if Jimmy Garoppolo played in this game that it would have mattered at all.
And that defense is led by Crosby, one of the best edge rushers in the game, and he was no match for Tyson this past weekend.
The Raiders' defense, don't get me wrong, it's not a great defense. It is not. Max Crosby's a great player, but the Raiders' defense is not great, and I do want to see Bagent do it against a more formidable opponent than the Raiders, although the Raiders have a couple really good players on defense. He's got the Chargers coming up this week on Sunday Night Football, so he's going to have a primetime game to really show what he can do against another team. The Chargers' defense has underperformed this year, but there's still a ton of talent on it with guys like Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, all those really great players they have on defense. So I really want to see if Bagent can do it again this week, and I think then we'll really have a read on whether he's going to be a potential option for the Bears for the rest of the season.
And Bagent will have to deal with, like you said, Bosa and Khalil Mack, both great edge rushers in the NFL as well. I mean, he's already got his first victory. He's 1-0, and in Justin Fields' career, he's 1-14 as a starter for the Bears. So definitely something you have to keep an eye out as a Bears fan in the front office of the Chicago Bears. Moving on, another team that is usually on the rise during this time of the year, but kind of falling down, the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills 4-3, currently sitting at the 3rd spot in the wild card in the AFC, and get a disbibble loss against the Patriots this past Sunday in Foxborough. They had a tough loss against Jacksonville in London. You could probably say some of that was because of traveling to London, injuries. I get it.
Jags are a good team. That was a tough game. So that loss kind of was understandable. Losing to the Patriots.
Yes,
they were 1-5, had gotten blown out their last couple games, and I don't know how you.
The Bills are up and down because they lose to the Jets after the Jets lose Rodgers, first game of the year, and 4-3. This really feels like Miami is going to take the division this year.
But it's crazy though, because when Buffalo plays Miami, they beat Miami.
Which makes zero sense.
So Buffalo started off a little, obviously, with a loss on the road to the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. But then they rattled off 3 straight wins, and it kind of looked like the Bills are back, and the Bills are going to be really good this year. But now they've lost 2 out of 3, and the offense is not playing as well as it should with all the talent that they have. And the Bills are just so confusing. They really are. Every single year now, it just seems like they lose these games that they just should not lose at all. Josh Allen will just randomly have a couple of games where he just turns the ball over a ton. He didn't necessarily do that this game, but the offense was not moving the ball efficiently. There's a lot of checkdowns all game, just not a lot there downfield for the Bills. So I just don't have a read on the Bills. It's impossible. It's impossible.
And I feel like Josh Allen is too comfortable with Stephon Diggs and doesn't use people like Gabe Davis, Knox enough. I mean, you lose McKenzie to the Colts, another receiver that made plays for the Bills and Josh Allen. But you take a look at this, Nick. Last 3 years, the Bills in the playoffs. Last year, they lose in the division round to the Bengals. Then in 2022, they lose in the division round to the Chiefs. And in 2021, they had that heartbreaking loss in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. Is this a Bills team that can make it back to the AFC Championship like they did in 2021?
I don't think so. The AFC is, in my opinion, wide open this year because teams like Buffalo and Cincinnati, who we thought would be two of the top contenders heading into the year, have kind of underperformed so far. So I think anything's on the table. I wouldn't be surprised if they made the AFC title game. But this to me, though, looks like the weakest Bills team we've seen out of any of them. And these past Bills teams that look like juggernauts in the regular season, they haven't even been able to do it in the playoffs. So as a team that is inconsistent like this one, are they going to be able to make a run? I find it unlikely. And I just don't think the Bills have the recipe to win in the playoffs anyways, because, they can't run the ball. They haven't been able to run the ball in pretty much Josh Allen's whole tenure. Josh Allen's been the leading rusher the past couple of years for the Bills. You don't really want your quarterback to be your leading rusher unless you have Lamar Jackson on your team, probably. So I don't see it with this Bills team. They also have a ton of injuries on defense. They lost Matt Milano for the season in London. So that Tre'Davious White as well, he's also out for the season. So in my opinion, this is the weakest Bills team we've seen in a couple of years. So I think that they can still obviously get in the playoffs. And you have Josh Allen, you have Stephon Diggs. You're going to be a good team, at least an above-average team with a winning record. But I wouldn't count on this team to make a deep run at all. And I think their window is starting to slightly close on them a little bit, as they've kind of blown their chances in recent years to really make a run, because people have said that they've had the most stacked roster in the league last year. That's what people were saying all year long. But they lost in this divisional round. We're not even close to the Bengals. So
yeah, I really agree. I agree with you on that point. I do think the Bills, this is the most downgraded Bills team we've seen since Josh Allen has entered the league. And I really think this is a team, as I mentioned earlier, third in the wild card standings right now. I definitely see them with the first wild card exit. I really do. And it's just disappointing for Buffalo fans. Buffalo, they won a Super Bowl so badly. They lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. They're trying to get a championship in Buffalo, but it's just been so difficult. They thought
that this would be the team that could finally get them over the hump, finally get them that Super Bowl, and they haven't even been able to make it there yet. And this is, they're going to have Josh Allen for another decade, so they're still going to be in it. They're still going to be competitive. As long as Josh Allen's their quarterback, they will be a competitive team. But I just feel like they've missed their opportunities because they've had such talented rosters the past couple seasons and haven't been able to do anything with it. They haven't been able to get by the Chiefs or Bengals.
Well, like you said, their running hasn't been great. We know Singletary's not with them anymore this year. But yeah, just have to figure out a way to get over that hump. As we move over on to another, we thought, dynamic team, but now losing 2 in a row is the San Francisco 49ers. They lose a heartbreaker in Cleveland against the Browns, 19-17, missing 2 field goals. And now last night on Monday Night Football, losing to the Vikings. Yes, you don't have Samuel. You don't have a completely healthy Christian McCaffrey. But even then, you still got to go out and perform, play your best football, and the 49ers are just not doing that, Nick.
Yeah, I was shocked by this game, to be honest. I thought the Niners would rebound in a big way after losing a heartbreaker in Cleveland last week. But I think at this point, they're just not really healthy when you don't have Trent Williams, who's arguably the best left tackle in the league, didn't have Deebo Samuel either. And if I'm San Francisco, I'd be more concerned the fact that Brock Purdy, the last couple weeks, without this top talent, has looked not nearly as good as he was the first couple games of the season.
Definitely hasn't looked like himself.
No, not at all. And I'm just worried that might be who he is. Maybe he's just a guy that's elevated by the talent around him, and that's just who he is. And because Brock Purdy, in my opinion, already is a guy who's not going to go out there and win you a game with his big-time plays. He's going to be a guy that manages the game, takes the easy throws. Now, normally he wasn't turning the ball over. The last couple weeks he started to a little bit more. So Brock Purdy, he might just be a game manager. And I do think that when they're healthy, that's all the Niners need is a game manager. But it's just tough sometimes to beat some of these other teams that have these great quarterbacks, like the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, like the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. Like when you face these guys in the playoffs, if you don't have a quarterback that can go blow for blow with them, it's hard to win games.
Yeah, and their schedule doesn't get that much easier. Next week, America's game of the week against Cincinnati. So that is going to be a tough test for them. Cincinnati coming off a bye week, 3-3, last in the AFC North right now. So that is a game that everyone's going to be watching, not only for the standings, but for fantasy as well. Definitely want to get some big players up in their fantasy points and just in the standings as well.
The Bengals have been playing a lot better recently. They've won 2 in a row. They're 3-3 now, and if they win this game, they're really looking back. They can really get their season back on track. If they get above 500, they're at 4-3. They're fully back in the playoff mix if they win this game. So it's a huge game for the Bengals, and I also think it's a huge game for the Niners because if you drop 3 in a row, then there really starts to be some questions on a team that a lot of people thought when they started 5-0 was by far the best roster in the NFL.
Super
Super Bowl favorites. That's what they were 2 weeks ago. And to go from that to potentially now, if they lose this game, dropping 3 in a row, there's going to be a lot of questions in San Francisco.
But you bring up a good point, Nick. If you're Kyle Shanahan and you drop 3 in a row, do you hit the panic button if you're Kyle Shanahan?
I mean, there's not much really you can do besides just keep going. Maybe they can make a trade at the trade deadline for somebody. I mean, I feel like you got to just stay the course and just get the ship going. Like if they lose 3 in a row, you just got to find a way to steady the ship, get back on track, get back to where you were. But to be honest, though, I wouldn't be that worried. I wouldn't hit the panic button because last year they started out 3-4 and then rattled off 10 straight victories to end the season. So they were in a worse position this time last year than they are right now.
And let's be honest, their division isn't that great. I mean, you got the 1-6 Cardinals in your division. Rams are definitely not the same since they won the Super Bowl.
Seattle has a tough matchup versus Cleveland this week. They're probably the second best team in that division, in my opinion.
And Seattle's defense isn't that great either. Like, their offense is hit or miss, but their defense is just atrocious.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle, if they drop this game to Cleveland, they're 4-3, but still, if they do beat Cleveland this week and the Niners lose, Seattle will be in first place.
Yeah.
So there's a chance the Niners could go from the number 1 seed all the way out of first place in 3 weeks.
Yeah, going from the best record to one of the subpar records in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I think San Francisco will turn it around. They're too talented of a roster not to, in my opinion. They have so much talent on both sides of the football. I still think that they're arguably the most complete roster in the NFL. In my opinion, it's them or the Eagles for most complete roster. And I still just think that them and the Eagles are head and shoulders above the rest of the NFC. I still think so.
Yeah.
Even though they've struggled the past couple of weeks, I still just think come playoff time, this team's going to be a lot better than Detroit, Dallas. They showed how much better they are than Dallas.
Yes.
Detroit got
clearly
exposed this weekend as not being quite there yet. Some people were ready to put Detroit on a pedestal up with San Francisco and Philly. I think they showed last week that they're not quite there yet, not at all. So I don't see any other teams in the NFC that I think are on the same level as the Niners, despite their struggles.
Well, we saw last year in the playoffs, Minnesota 13-4 record in the regular season, and then they lose first round in the playoffs. So.
I knew they were frauds. I knew Minnesota was frauds.
Anything can happen in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's ways away. But moving on, we have another team that was pretty shocking. Obviously, their record isn't as great as the Niners or the Eagles, but in the Eagles division, the Giants. Giants get the 14-7 victory over the Commanders, and we understand the Commanders aren't that 500 team or better right now in the NFL, but Giants start Tyrod Taylor. He throws 2 touchdown passes, one to Saquon Barkley, which definitely need to get him going if you're a Giants fan. But
Darren Waller as well, who's been struggling so far this season.
Darren Waller as well, yeah, their star tight end. But if you're a Giants fan in New York, Tyrod Taylor throws 2 touchdown passes in 1 game, and in 5 games, Daniel Jones has only thrown 2 touchdown passes. Do you start Taylor over Jones?
I don't think you can, just because Daniel Jones is in the first year of a 4-year, $160 million contract, getting paid $40 million a season, and there's no way out of that contract after this season. It's essentially a 2-year deal, so if he struggles again next year, they can get out of that after 2 years. But I just don't think you can bench a quarterback that's making that much money. The real mistake was giving him that much money in the first place with Daniel Jones,
absolutely,
in my opinion.
I completely agree. Long-term contracts, it doesn't matter what the sport is. You can't give a guy $1 million contract, a lot of money contract, based off of one season, because you don't know if he can do that consistently.
And he was solid last year, but he was still just a game manager. He only threw 15 touchdown passes all last season. The difference is last year he didn't turn the ball over. This year he's turned the ball over.
And he's getting sacked a lot.
He is getting sacked a lot. That's why I don't think Daniel Jones is the problem in New York, but I think he's part of the problem because he does have a hard time holding onto the ball and not turning the ball over. He's had every single season in his career besides last season, he's struggled with turnovers. And he also just isn't dynamic enough to put big plays on the board to make up for those turnovers.
Well, like you said, Waller needs to start to get going. If the Giants want to do anything to save their season, and Barkley's so injury prone, it's a tough because he has such great talent, but he can't stay healthy. So if he can stay healthy the rest of the way, that would help the Giants a little bit. But at the end of the day, at the trade deadline, there's got to be something they can do to help boost their club.
I think, though, this offseason, in my opinion, the Giants need to overhaul their offense in general because I just think they're going to have to give Daniel Jones another season. They just have to with all the money they paid him. They're going to need this offseason to really put some work in that offensive line because that offensive line is not good. The receiving core is also not good. Darren Waller is a really good tight end, but receiving core, I mean, their number one options are guys who would be number threes on other teams. So they don't have a true number one receiver. And it's hard to judge Daniel Jones without a true number one option like that, but he also does. I just also think the turnovers and him just not having a huge big play ability like you see with some other quarterbacks, I still don't think he'd be that great with better talent around him. So I don't know what to do if you're the Giants, to be honest. I think they just need to focus this offseason on putting as much talent around Daniel Jones as they possibly can so they can actually get a look to see what he can look like
with the talent he's got.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll look that much better, but we'll see.
I personally don't either. As a Cowboys fan, I have to watch the Giants twice a year.
And I mean, they've been on prime time almost every game this season, like 4 times already.
Yeah, yeah. They've had a lot of primetime games, probably because of Daniel Jones's best season of his career last year. I mean, we see it with the Jets, too, being on a lot of primetime games because they were supposed to see Aaron Rodgers. But moving on to another team that is also in the Giants division, the Eagles. The Eagles just got Julio Jones. They get the victory over a good Miami team and just made a trade.
Yeah, the Eagles, they traded a 5th, 6th round pick and as well as Terrell Edmonds to the Tennessee Titans for Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard is an all-pro safety. He's had a great career in Tennessee. He's 29 years old now, so he's getting a little older, but he's still such a dynamic ball hawk in the secondary. And how do the Eagles keep getting away with this?
They've had good luck with the Titans. I mean, they got A.J.
Brown from them. They've made so many good trades in recent years, and I just
really
always
like doing
find
business.
myself asking, how did we let the Eagles get this guy? It's the same thing with Jalen Carter in the draft this year. How did we let the best player in the draft fall to number 9 to the Eagles? How did we let A.J. Brown become an Eagle? They have added so much talent in recent years with trades like this. Howie Roseman is just a genius. In my opinion, he's the best GM in football, and he just keeps on pulling off these trades that it's like, how do the Eagles keep getting away with this? I really don't get it.
Like you said, they have a great front office, a great staff. I mean, making it back to the Super Bowl since 2018 last year, and obviously not the outcome they wanted, but definitely with this trade, definitely Super Bowl contenders for sure. I mean, we knew they were Super Bowl contenders before the season even started.
They have the best. I know I said this about the Niners earlier. I said it's either them or the Eagles are the most complete rosters in the NFL. I think now with this trade, adding another guy to that secondary, that the Eagles right now have the best roster in the NFL. And I said that coming into the season too. There just isn't really any holes on this Eagles roster.
And with him and Darius Slay, like that's just a dynamic duo, and a lot of fans, including ourselves, are looking forward to seeing that on the field.
I mean, yeah, it's like they lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson this offseason. It was huge for them last year. He intercepted 6 passes last year after they got him for like a 4th round pick last year from the Saints. So now they get Kevin Byard, bring him in as safety, and it's just I don't know how the Eagles just keep adding these talented players for pretty much not giving up much at all. I saw that the Titans now have given the Eagles A.J. Brown and Kevin Byard, and in return, all they've gotten is Traylon Burks, who they took with the 1st round pick, has not lived up to it so far. He's had injuries. He definitely has had injuries, but he's no A.J. Brown, clearly.
Right.
They took Malik Willis with the third-round pick they got in the A.J. Brown trade. He hasn't really been great for them so far. They already drafted another quarterback in Will Levis. And then they also now got a 5th and 6th round pick for Kevin Byard. So they give up 2 all-pro players, 2 of the best players at their positions in the NFL, and have barely gotten anything in return for them. And I think that's a huge reason why the Titans have gone from the number 1 seed in the AFC just 2 years ago now to being a below 500 team who, in my opinion, is likely headed towards a last place finish in the AFC South.
Yeah, they definitely have gone downhill, and Derrick Henry, not the same king running back we know and love. He's having a down year, and
their O-line has deteriorated. Taylor Lewan retired. They lost a lot of they used to have a really good O-line a few years ago. They lost Jack Conklin a couple years ago as well.
And they're in the AFC South. I feel like it's so underrated because their division is I think better than people think, because you got the Jaguars who are 5-2, the Colts that actually look pretty decent with Gardner Minshew. I mean,
the Colts have a good offense because of their new head coach, Shane Steichen. He is an amazing play caller. I saw it the whole game against the Browns. He was constantly scheming up these run plays that were there were big holes almost the entire time. It's Shane Steichen was the Eagles play caller last year, so we know what he can do as a play caller. And I think the AFC South too, I agree it's underrated because you have 2 young quarterbacks, 2 rookie quarterbacks in Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud, probably looking like the faces of these 2 Colts and Texans teams going forward. So those are 2 teams that could have some success going forward. The Jaguars have Trevor Lawrence. They're going to be pretty successful for a long time, you'd think, with having a quarterback and head coach like Doug Peterson. So the Titans are they're kind of the bottom feeders now in that division. They went from running that division, winning it almost every single season. Now they are the last place team, clearly.
And the Colts, good thing for them for on their schedule. They've already faced the Jaguars twice. They already lost to them twice, so they don't have to worry about the top dogs anymore. And the Colts, and like you said, Nick, the Colts and the Texans, they're not bad teams. I just really think their defense is what they need to really work on. Especially, I mean, we saw it against the Browns this past Sunday, giving up 39 points. I really think the defense for the Colts especially, and the Texans as well, really needs to be worked on.
Yeah, because the Colts and Texans this offseason, they're 2 of the worst teams in the NFL last season. This offseason, hired new coaches, drafted new quarterbacks, and the Colts even, since losing Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew has stepped up and played pretty well. He has turned the ball over a lot the past couple of weeks, but he still made a lot of really big plays and big-time throws, as well as big-time runs. I didn't know he could scramble like that, like he was doing last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So the Colts and Texans, I think, are going to be problems they're going to be some sneaky good teams going forward, and the Titans just they don't have a future, in my opinion. They're an old roster with a lot of holes, and a lot of their best players are older players like DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, their quarterback. They're just an old roster, and I think their future is heading in a downward direction. And just not getting anything for A.J. Brown and Kevin Byard now, I think is going to come back to really, really hurt them.
Yeah, I definitely think they're going to be a rebuild team, and I do think Tannehill has been in the league for so long.
I could see Mike Vrabel leaving. I don't think he wants to sit around for a rebuild. I don't think he wants to.
That would be interesting, honestly, for the NFL fans. I don't know if, I mean, he was with the Patriots for so long. He knows what a winning dynamic.
Maybe he could be Belichick's successor.
Maybe. I mean, he knows what a winning culture's like, winning 2 Super Bowl rings with the Patriots. So definitely something that the Tennessee fans and the faithful are going to have to keep their hopes on. They could turn their season around.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Vrabel, he is the only reason why I have hope in the Titans going forward, because he's proven he's a really good coach. And, I mean, he led the Titans to the number 1 seed without Derrick Henry for half the season, with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. He's proven, and he took him to the AFC title game in 2019 after being a 9-7 team.
Beating the Ravens, I believe.
Yeah, beat the number 1 seed Ravens. Mike Vrabel's a great coach, and I think if the Titans let him walk out the door because they tore down this roster, I think they're going to end up really, really regretting it.
Yeah. Well, that concludes the series premiere of The 1 Yard Line. Make sure you tune in to the Come On Ref show tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, Wednesdays, and tune into our show next week, The 1 Yard Line. And stay tuned. Also next week, we're going to have On the Mat Wrestling Show featuring me, where we'll talk about the upcoming NCAA Division I wrestling season and preseason rankings and predictions. Make sure you stay tuned all for that. Make sure you follow the Come On Ref Show TikTok and Instagram pages. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.